We are on a mission.
A mission to save and revitalize independent pharmacy.
On the Catalyst Pharmacy podcast,
you will get actionable business advice,
hear stories from industry leaders,
and share a laugh with us.
Fuel your passion for pharmacy,
one conversation at a time.
Hey, how's it going, Mark?
Hey, man. How are you?
Good. You made it home.
I did. Looks like you did as well.
Yeah. Good trip.
Good stuff.
That's right. Where was it? It was not NCPA.
NACDS.
NACDS. Yeah.
Regional.
Different.
Yes.
Different.
We were both in
acronyms.
Florida where the weather was it was cold here. I was happy to get there where it was warm.
And it was 70 degrees in the conference room. In case you went, Mark.
I really did. I was there.
Wow.
I was at the bar. It was like 67. So
Okay.
you met Brandon Bruno. He is the producer of Catalyst Podcast. He's in the background making it all happen. He's probably been the only person who's been on every show in some way.
Tell Brandon, thank you for sending the makeup crew. I really appreciate that.
Yeah. We even did a rent-a-crowd for you after this. So Kevin's here with us too. He works in the studio with us, man. If Brandon built the engine, Kevin keeps it oiled. So if you worked with him, he's been great as well. Josh Howland is here. He is our SVP of Pharmacy Systems. I think that's what we changed it to. Something like that.
GM of Pharmacy Management Systems.
There you go.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I know, right? Look at him.
So now I get to be responsible for not breaking 3 pharmacy systems instead of 1.
For sure.
Well, that's a challenge for sure.
Yeah. I am here. For anyone who doesn't know me, I'm the Senior Vice President of Sales for RedSail. Bill, I wrote you a little bit of an intro. Can I read it for you?
Sure.
All right. So everyone knows Bill Osborn, but if you don't, he's the president of Osborn Drugs. Board member or trustee, I can't remember exactly what it's called, of the NCPA Foundation Board, past president of NCPA as well, current chairman of Align RX. Unify as well? You're the chairman of that board there for Unify?
Not currently.
Not currently. Okay. I thought you did. SureScript's board of directors member as well, and president-elect. Is this like your 8th time? I'm not sure. President-elect of the Oklahoma Pharmacist Association, Bill.
I don't know what I would say.
Bill Osborn.
Thank you. Yeah, that was a fun. I was in line to be president of the Pharmacy Association 30 years ago.
Okay.
And I got appointed to the State Board of Pharmacy, and so you had to resign to be on the board. So I resigned. I served for 10 years, and I thought, well, I've done my service. And then I tell you, our state association has done such a good job at the grassroots level, creating great PBM bills and things like that. It's just important to be a part of. So I'm excited about being a part of it. I'm not 30 years old anymore, so I'll have to take it slow.
I feel like you've got the workload of someone who's 30 or 35. I don't know. I don't know. Like you're always doing stuff. So I
was kind of bummed about my workload, and then you described all the things Bill does.
How weak we look.
I feel lazy.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. There's also stuff on there listed, like you said. You served 10 years on the board of pharmacy. There's so much stuff not listed. That was just the current things Bill's doing. Everyone. So before we're gonna talk about a few things. I want to hit on a little bit of PBM reform, a little bit of like post-retro-DIR fee world, all of that stuff. Like what's kind of what you're trending, what you're looking at in 2024. But before I do any of that stuff, what I'd like to do, because I know a lot of people know you, Bill, but I think a lot of people haven't met you too at the same time. Can we start with the journey of how Bill Osborn got into pharmacy?
Well, it's a kind of a family affair. So I'm a 2nd-generation pharmacist.
Okay.
I always talk to other pharmacy owners. I have a good joke that I tell that, and it kind of makes them stop a little bit. I'll say, well, I work for my father. I'm gone to work in the family business. And I said, congratulations, you're a member of the SOB club. And they're like, what's the SOB club? I said, son of boss. But my dad always wanted to own his own store. Graduated from UMKC back in the late 50s.
Okay.
Was able to he stopped having kids, had 5 kids. And so raised by a single parent. And so as he had to started working in downtown Miami when he was 13 years old, shining shoes and doing all those things. And so he, after that, went to pharmacy school, worked all the way through, got out. All he wanted to do was own his own store, and he didn't have the capital to do it. So finally in 1968, he bought out his mentor, a gentleman named John Wiley, and Wiley RedSail Drug. And it was Wiley Cole RedSail Drug. And then in 1971, he bought out Max Cole, and so Osborn Drug was formed. So that's how that Osborn Drug was formed. And then so after, I was 13 years old, every Saturday from 13 all the way through high school, I had a dust rag and a seat, and I dusted the pharmacy from one end to the other. And when I finished, I started again. But I always wanted to be a pharmacist. And so saw how he acted and how he operated in the community. And that's always been important to how pharmacy was a profession to him. It was not a job, and it was a career. And so I learned that. And then I still remember I went to junior college, played junior college basketball, and as my brother always says, he was there 3 years before me, and we were the only 2 people whose grade point average was higher than your scoring average. So we realized it was time to maybe move on to academic deal, and so I started doing pharmacy, pre-pharmacy, and went to the University of Oklahoma, graduated, 1984, came back to the family business, and it was a great time to do that. I mean, things like the first year was back, we changed pharmacy systems. We did all kinds of things, and it was just fun to be a part of those decisions and make things happen. So,
wow. So I won't hold.
That's how I ended up where I am, I guess. So
I won't hold the OU part against you.
Oh gosh, forget we have a Longhorn. I'm sorry, Bill.
Okay, you know what? It just means more now with the Longhorns. This SEC thing.
So I know. That's right. I'll get to play. Yeah,
it's going to be fun. I really want, for the first time in my life, I want to root for Oklahoma to just go in and dominate in the SEC with Texas. Right, you don't want to hear the luckily Alabama's going to be bad next year.
Little chip on the shoulder about the SEC.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
And also, both our fan bases have a little humbling, I think, coming. So.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's going to be tough, but we'll see.
Fair enough.
So one thing I was thinking about with you talking there, you're up to what, 29 stores around there now?
We bought a store in December. Mathis Drug in Girard,
30.
Kansas. Have a partner there, Rhea Scheibe, and just energetic, kind of close to her hometown. And so that's been our latest purchase. So we're at 30 now. So that's a big number for us.
So who started the growth? Was that your dad? Did he stay in one store and you did the other 29, or how'd that go?
No, well, in 1971, Dad, like I said, wanted to own his own store, never had to have the capital to do so. Realized after paying off the store in Miami that there were people just like him. And there was a young man at the time named Jim Spoon, and Jim was from Miami, had worked for Dad, had moved to Tulsa, and they said, hey, if you ever want to buy a store or whatever, give me a call. Let's do a store together. So they went in and started buying. They bought a store, and Spoon Drug's been our partner for over 40 years.
Okay.
Jim is a great pharmacist leader as well. But anyway, that was the start of it. And when I came back in 1984, I think we had 3, maybe 4 locations. And we've grown a little bit as we go, and we take people that work with us. And, I always tell people, if you work together for 3 or 4 years and you still like each other, then let's go buy a store together. And our model has worked out really well. It's unique in the marketplace. And because of our structure, Osborn Drug owns half of the stores. And then, Mark, if you and I bought a store together, you'd own half, and Osborn Drug would own half. and then Josh of Osborn Drug would do the same. And what that's given is a common ownership, which allows us to, people say, are you a chain or are you an independent? And my answer always is, what do I need to be?
Yeah, that's a good answer.
What benefits it? So we've been able to take economy of scale and really help our partners make money. And the difference between what we have from a franchise model and what we do is we have an equity model. So we don't make money, in a franchise model, you get your fee up front. You hope the guy makes it, but you don't really have that much in the game.
Fair.
For us, it's about equity. And so we make money together, and it's not always perfect, but it works well. So.
Well, let's go deeper into that a little bit. I had that on the list too. How many partners have you guys helped? 21. Okay.
Yeah.
21 and growing. It seems like.
Yeah, and we have them. Like I said, some stores we have 2 partners. We have some partners that own more than one.
Sure.
And we do it together. But it's a real. Our tax lady loves all the taxes and the payrolls and all that stuff because there's a lot to do.
There's a lot to do. So part of that too, like I think something that's pretty unique about your model is you guys warehouse your own SKUs at times as well. I mean, like what you can do with, imagine if you had a pool of resources for 30 pharmacies. How do you leverage that the most to buy efficiently and buy really well? I think you guys have figured out a model that really works for you in warehousing your own SKUs and getting everyone to buy into everybody. We've got to buy this way.
Yeah. And it is, I've learned a long time ago, you don't want to tell people how to do things. You want them to want to do things.
Right.
And so if they want to buy from your warehouse and you can make those things right, but the warehouse came from my relationship on the chain side of the industry. And I was able to be asked to be a part of an organization. Originally it was called the CDC. Now it's the Premier Value Alliance.
Chain.
And there's several regional chains in there. And that opened the door for us to see, like I said, pharmacy from a different angle, a different view. And they invited us to be a part of their group. And so we've grown a lot in that warehouse space because of that. We now buy with, we're part of the Topco group and buy our generic warehouse products through Topco.
Got it. Okay. Well, that's huge. Can I read you something? Okay. I did a little research. I went and asked a few people in very I'll say this, at very limited time. So only one of them was able to really get back to me. Since this is kind of the same, this goes down the same vein. So this is a little bit of surprise to you, but I just wanted to, this was really cool that someone wrote, and I'll give you who it is after I read it. I've known Bill since I graduated pharmacy school. His dad and Bill are truly salt of the earth people. We've bought our first store together in 2010, so you probably know who I'm talking about already. We moved out of Oklahoma to Kansas to buy our stores in Kansas. I don't think my mom will speak to him because of that, but that's okay. Their model has allowed many young pharmacists like me to be able to own stores at a younger age. His mentorship, his wisdom has been invaluable to me throughout the years. One of the things I respect the most about Bill, and I think this really comes through in all of the things you're a part of, is he truly cares about the profession, sacrifices so much time and energy for the greater good. Pharmacy is truly better today because of Bill Osborn. By Darren Price. So
what an outstanding young man. I mean, the model is very, very kind, and he's so talented, and he's like me. He married up. He's got Renee with him. Who
I've met her. He has no business.
And what I love about our model is I really feel like we're planting seeds. I'm not up front in Darren's businesses. I'm not up front in Jim's businesses. Yeah. We're just in the background trying to help them be more up front.
Right.
And you talk about where innovation comes from. A lot of the innovations that we have today, we always learn from other people. But honestly, it's trying to keep up with a guy like Darren, the different things they're doing.
Yeah.
Trying to keep up with Brian West in Parsons, Kansas. Yeah. Steve Pryor and I went to school together years ago in Enid, Oklahoma. I mean, it's just it's just amazing. For example, when I was president of NCPA in 2018, Steve Pryor from Enid was president of ACA.
Okay.
And Rodney Skinner, our partner in Elk City, Oklahoma, he was president of the Oklahoma Pharmacists Association. So, you just see this community-minded partnerships out there, and we're still looking and trying to find opportunities to grow. But that's very kind words from Darren.
He asked me to ask about something, but we'll say that for the end of the podcast. Okay.
Okay.
All right. We'll save that to the end. It's more fun. The other thing. So the other thing I wanted to hit on too was this is a marriage you're making really with partners in general. Osborn Drugs, it is. The whole group probably a little bit too has to kind of all like be able to work with each other. What do you look for when someone's approaching you, or maybe even you're approaching them? I don't know. As far as like alignment with values, with what Osborn Drugs and this group is about, and relative to what they want, what are you looking for to overlap? I guess.
Part of it is you got to be willing to be involved in your community. Okay. So if you're involved in your community, you're going to be that you're the face of the organization. So your kids are going to school there. You're going to church there. You're involved with people. It creates a personal touch in pharmacy that is even more rare today than it's ever been. And then so it allows them to do it. You need an entrepreneurial spirit. Okay. That spirit is one of my concerns about pharmacy as a career today is so many of our pharmacists are time clock punchers. And I mean, they're so worried about, I'm clocking in at 9, I get off at 6 and I get an hour off. And an entrepreneurial spirit is you work till the job's done and you get things done but the difference is you're working for yourself. So you have a different attitude, and I'm not against people that do that. And I understand organizations that you work for, you have to do that. Yeah. I think it's somebody willing to, go that extra mile or do those extra things maybe. And you see it even when they're a staff pharmacist, those skills come out. Yep.
So you basically use a staff pharmacist as an interview for somebody you might want to open a store with?
Yeah. I think that's why I said you got to work together, because if, you know what, Josh, you may think, Bill, your teeth are crooked. I can't own a store with you. Or, whatever those reasons. And the other thing that's critical is it's a family decision. Okay. It's not an individual decision. Right. If your family is not involved, if your spouse or significant other is not a part of that decision, then you will not be successful, because happy wife, happy life is true. Right. So, and I think I love the story about Darren. They had a store that they thought they were going to buy in their hometown, and we had this opportunity in Winfield, and he was so excited about doing that, and his mom was, I do think she was unhappy with me, but I think she's forgiving me now.
I think y'all are. I think you're on speaking terms now, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think so.
So one of the things that we face as well on the RedSail Pioneer side is you've got multiple partners that you don't own all of, right? So you've got to convince them that the way that the organization's going to go, they want to go too. So how do you control, or not really control, how do you convince 21 other people to march with you?
And
how can I do that too?
You have mutual respect to them. Mm-hmm. I remember, and I'm not as good. My father, who started this before me, every Friday would call every partner. Well, I got 21 partners. I can't do that every Friday, but I try to communicate on a regular basis. I think there's a trust factor there, and you got to make sure that you don't betray that trust, and make sure you're transparent with them about what we're doing. And hopefully, what we can do is show them a positive effect at the bottom line. And if you can show the positive effect of the bottom line, it's easier to get people to buy in.
For sure. Right. Start seeing results, right?
Yeah. I mean, 'cause that's definitively one of the things that we're trying to do. And, your comment about, are you a chain? Are you independent? What do you need me to be? Is very much aligned with what we're trying to do, right? How do you push the profession of pharmacy forward, but still maintain 6,000 independent people operating completely independently, right? Like, it's how do we march together in the same direction, but still let you keep all of the cool things that make you independent and special? I worked for Walgreens. I don't want to do it again. I know most of the people who own a pharmacy at some point worked in a chain. They're independent for a reason, but there are certain things we have to do together, right?
And I understand the frustration. I mean, think about this. We have 30 locations. All of our locations are always on the same software platform. So we're all on Pioneer. Every one of our stores uses it a little different.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't have some policy and procedure that says this is how you're going to do it.
Right.
We're allowing them to within limits, figure out how they're going to do it their way. And it's fascinating to watch if you go to one of those stores to how different they are, but yet the same bones are there. But it's just how they're using it. And it's pretty neat. And one of our challenges with Pioneer, I'm always proud of what we did with Pioneer. I think we converted 28 stores at the time.
Oh, yeah.
It's been about 3 years ago in 6 weeks.
At once, basically.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
And we've been doing conversions since 1984 from software to new software. And it was by far the smoothest data conversion that we'd ever had. And part of that was the buy-in from staff and Pioneer understanding how important that was.
Yeah.
Because learning new software and how it works, it takes some time.
Yeah.
And but I always remember that's an example of buy-in from our partners and a consensus that, hey, we need to go to Pioneer, we think, because they're innovative, they're doing these things, and they're doing the things that we need to be getting ready for or do. And so that's an example where we just put it out there, and that's what the group wanted to do. And so it's been a good thing. So
yeah, I remember that journey, just all the way from clerk to tech to pharmacist to owner. Everybody was either bought in or trying to learn in some way. So that was a really good example of like how you get 30 stores done quickly is a ton of buy-in. Not saying there wasn't bumps, but yeah, that's good story there. That's good.
Yeah.
The other thing, so I want to move to, we're kind of in it's too early probably. We're too early. Could I move to the post-retro-DIR world a little bit?
Sure.
So we all know, like, everyone's kind of waiting for a shoe to drop maybe or something like that this quarter, next quarter. Everyone hopefully built up a war chest in some way. What's kind of early trend you're seeing, or an early success factor that you're seeing that you did preventatively maybe, or in some way that's helping you deal with this?
One of the programs that helped us prepare, and Align RX is a PSAO that we're in, and they've always been very innovative in technology, and they have a liability report feature in their program that every month tells you what your DIR liabilities were, and what has been paid. Now, the scary part, 29 stores, our DIR bill was over $6 million. Oof. Now, the nice part about that is that there's nothing nice about it, but the part about knowing it is we were able to use that DIR report from Align RX to post those liabilities on our financial statement. So we didn't want to go through a year end thinking we had this great year end, and then in March, all of a sudden it's all the cash is gone and the profit's gone.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So it allowed us not to overstate the profit with that 6-month cash flow. We worked real hard to make sure we have plenty of, thinking if it really was a cliff that destroyed us or whatever, we had enough, we went to all the banks and got financials and used that to get lines of credit to cover any shortfall we may have. We haven't had to use any of those lines of credit.
That's great.
I think March will be a big time. That's when the first they call it trimester or whatever they call it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so I think that'll be the first deal. But right now, our cash is looking pretty good, and I'm feeling really positive. We've had a couple stores that have higher than others, and some you can explain it, some you can't. I had one store that one of the companies had us as rural and then made us not rural. And all of a sudden we got a DIR bill of $30,000, and they're like, wait a minute, and it's a small store. How do you, anyway, we've had those kind of challenges, but I think we're prepared for it. And the other thing we did that's important is maybe we held off on a little bit of capital investment.
Okay.
So We did have a couple of our stores bought robots and things like that, but we really limited our expenses, and we really started managing our expenses, because not only is the DIR cliff of money coming out, the fact that your current reimbursement includes the DIR for the current year.
Right.
So you've also got to get your house in order for a lower reimbursement that, by the way, you've always had, you just didn't know.
You just, right. It was just kind of hidden in this bulk payment that they were taking out, right? Quarterly.
Yeah. The other thing we did good is I know you probably had Ben Jolly on your podcast before, but Ben's such a talented guy with technology, and he went into all of our stores and loaded the DIR into Pioneer so that we would have a better look. And it changed a lot of pharmacies' minds of our partners, because they got to see, wait a minute, that's crazy. I thought I was making all this money and I'm not.
Right.
And I really think that Pioneer played a role in us being more prepared for that as well.
Oh, that's good.
It's great. So you mentioned, this year's reimbursements are lower, but that's basically all you've been paid. You've really been paid before. One of the things I think a lot of people were worried about was that was going to be even lower than historical. So you guys are seeing lower, but not lower than pre-DIR fee.
Yeah, I think it was interesting, because we have a chain agreement with Ol PBM, and we had to go through a pretty tough negotiation, and we got through it. And so in the dialogue with them, it was eye-opening for me, because they said, well, we took the reimbursement from last year and added it to your DIR fee, and that's the proposal we made. Well,
got it.
No wonder. I mean, it opened my eyes like, well, I can't accept that. I shouldn't have accepted it last year.
I shouldn't have did it. Yeah, I shouldn't have did it a year ago.
I just in my mind, I was looking at that reimbursement, not thinking, we'll have better quality numbers. We'll get that back.
Yeah.
And in reality, it wasn't true.
Right.
And so it was an eye opener for me. And I know there's a lot of people want to do independent versus PSAO versus chain on your own. And I can tell you, I've had both. And I'm doing everything I can to put all my contracts back into AlignRx so that they're handling that negotiations and things like that. So I know there's a lot of, you hear people on the market say, oh, they're making all this money, and that's just, nothing could be further from the truth. I mean, that's the network is there, and some of the contracts are poor, and I always love negotiation season. In August, every pharmacy's like, well, I'm not taking that. I'm not going to take that amount of money. I can't afford that. And then when December comes, oh my gosh, how come we're not in that network? Well, in August, and so I think that's one of the hard parts about the PSAO business is everybody says no in August, and everybody wants you to say yes in December. So
you're staring down it. Well, you're standing across from a patient too sometimes and going,
right.
Yeah. And then it gets a little more, you feel it differently there.
Right.
As well. A couple other things like, I think you've got what other, I guess, does it change the landscape much at all? And again, I'm asking for too early observation, so no one's going to hold you. Is it changing the landscape at all for brands? Because those were always like, I think from what I understood with last year's and the years before that, it was always like, man, most of these times these things are underwater, and things like that. Do you feel like it changes the landscape a little bit at all for brands?
It has, just because of the way the contracts are structured. Mm-hmm. I've been doing this a long time, and if you had high volume, you could do whatever you want. I mean, if I had a high volume store, volume made up for a lot of errors.
Got it.
Right. And a lot of ills. If you got reimbursement, you could say, oh, I've got volume, I can do that. Well, the problem is today, the mix of your volume is more important than the volume itself. Yeah. And if you're high brand, high GLP-1, think about this. At the last 3 months of 2023, 25% of the dollars purchased by our group was 13 drugs.
Wow.
GLP-1s.
Oof.
So and if you look at your reimbursement on GLP-1s, it's pretty bad. Mm-hmm. And so we've had to start looking at how do you handle those? Do you, we will only fill them if we're filling all your scripts.
Right.
We're not going to fill one and then you go get something everywhere else. And so we're trying to do it right. And they're miracle drugs. They help people. They help our patients. But they've got to allow us to fill them. And, some of the, like you talk about state laws and what's important.
Mm-hmm.
Oklahoma and Arkansas, you can actually tell the patient, your PBM or insurance company is paying me less than my cost, and you don't have to fill it.
Right.
And they can't. It's not a contract violation. So that's an example. That's a state law that we need in every state.
Yeah, it's shocking to me that that's not like that's bonkers that you can't mention that you're going to lose money on the script in a lot of states, actually.
Yeah, we have stores in Kansas, and I had a PBM send me a cease and desist letter because the pharmacist said I can't tell you this product because your insurance is paying me below cost, and they want to know what I was going to do about it. And had it happened in Oklahoma, I got a cease and desist letter, and I sent them the PBM rules or law from the state of Oklahoma, and I didn't hear another word.
All right.
So that would be important if we could get that done.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess another success factor probably for this quarter and next maybe is it sounds like you're fairly diligent about controlling costs, which means you're probably putting your business out for bid on a regular basis. Mm-hmm. It sounds like that. And then also maybe even layering on certain things. I thought you talked to me about compliance packaging or some of the Jerry Med stuff with medical at home. Did you guys diving into that and leaning into that a little bit?
Yeah. And what's been neat is Bill Holmes from RX Safe and he and I met years ago at a meeting and visited and it was funny because he kept talking about compliance packaging, and at the time they were all saying it had to be central fill. And when you look at the dollars invested, you think so.
It's huge.
And so he kind of evolved his product to where it was more able to be done at a store. And so I think we have 6 or 7 of those in our group, and talk about, planting a seed. Those are our owners that wanted to go and work hard and do that. Those things, the first 30% of our Pack My Meds patients, this is what we call it, 30% of those patients are new patients. So think about how hard it is to get a new patient.
Yeah. Really.
Yeah. That's surprising to me. I would have not expected it to be that high.
Yeah. And so it's been a good thing. Now it's work, but it also, we're having to, as we've evolved, how the technology's gotten better, but making sure that we are contacting patients and doing it the right way. I always remember the first patient we had go off the pack came in and says, "There's something wrong with this pack. I still have pills left." Well, there wasn't anything wrong with the pack.
Oh, really?
They were just embarrassed that they didn't take their pills right. And so but yeah, that's good. We sync as many patients as we can. And I've tried to tie those things together.
Right.
I laugh about compliance, HHS and all the insurance companies think if I send you a mail order, I'm going to be more compliant. There is no way that a 90-day supply to a patient mailed to their home is going to be more compliant than one of my patients that gets it every month in a 30-day box.
Right.
And I've said that to a lot of people over my career. And my point was, if compliance is the issue, then why are you paying me less to do 90-day supply?
Right.
Than 30-day supply. If you're wanting compliance, if we're paying for compliance, you should be paying me more.
Right.
For 90 days, and they're not.
Possession isn't compliance, right?
Yeah,
right.
Dude, I absolutely hate like NPR and PDC measures. You're at 80%. Well, I can guarantee you 100%. I'm just going to ship it to you every 30 days without you asking for it. And it doesn't mean anything, right? Like all I've done is increase waste.
Mm-hmm. It's true.
Good stuff.
Yeah, one of my dreams early on when we talked about it was like hopefully getting enough people recognizing the value of MedSync to get insurance companies to actually pay for that.
Yeah.
If you want good clinical control and good compliance, MedSync is the answer, right? Like that's how you layer on any kind of clinical product or new service. It's just,
especially for the most expensive patients to them.
Yeah.
If you think about that, like you want to be on the same side of the table. That's the best way to me to get on the same side of the table.
Well, and it was weird. Like back when I was in renal care, that's how we did it. Right, like you synced all of your patients, and we actually, it is one of those nice things where you have, when you know exactly where a patient's going to be. We had them in facility 3 hours a week, or 3 hours 3 times a week. I knew exactly where they were at when they were going to be there, so we would time their medication delivery to when they were dialyzing, and you counsel them there because they can't say I don't have time or I'm doing something else. I know exactly what you're doing. And it's a no-brainer, right? When you have sync patients, you know when they're coming, you know what they're going to do, and you can talk to them about anything you want for that 10-minute time period.
And they really appreciate it. They get the frustrating part for us is people don't answer their calls, or they don't, and so then they come in and say, "Well, I'm not taking that anymore." Well, you said everything was, and working through that. But to me, I don't work the counter as much as I used to, but I always remember the old days, a Monday. And, I always tell people Mondays, you do 30% more business than any other day.
Right.
And so, people come in and they would come in and had no refills. We had to call a doctor. Oh, we need a prior authorization.
Okay.
Oh, we had to do that.
Yeah.
All those people that are synced, we don't have to do that anymore. We've done that in advance. And so I don't think we understand. If you throw that in with e-prescribing, and it's really a different model today, and people get frustrated because sync, but you have to invest in the people that are doing sync and making sure that the patients are contacted.
Yep. And I always go back to, you see it in your cost, right? You see it, that's cash flow. You see it in your cash flow. You see it in your results too. Yeah, I get it.
Well, and another weird thing that you don't see until you walk into a store that's really good at MedSync, you see it in the employees' faces too, right? Like, when I first started, Monday and Tuesdays, especially the first Monday and Tuesday of the month, were like the worst days of the whole month, without question. I walked into a MedSync store that did only MedSync early on in when I first started at Pioneer, and I thought they were a very slow pharmacy because the staff was walking around. They didn't have that look of panic in their face. And they were doing like 700 scripts a day, but they were doing them predictably. And that was the whole difference. I was a MedSync evangelist from that day on.
I'll do it.
I agree.
I'll do it. You talked about this. I think is a good segue, even though I'm going to reach back 10 minutes, about like state laws, things like that, about, hey, you've got an advantage in Oklahoma and Arkansas to where you can have that relationship with the patient, have an open dialogue with the patient about what's what in that part of it. There's also some PBM reform, and I think there's a latest challenge to, I think it's the Mulready versus PCMA piece. I wanted you to kind of expand on that, or give us some thoughts on that.
Well, the Mulready case came up after the Rutledge case in Arkansas.
Right.
And PCMA went and filed a claim against that in Oklahoma courts, and they lost.
Right.
And so then they did an appeal, and the state of Oklahoma, that's the other thing why state, our attorney general and our insurance commissioner have had to step up in these cases. And the state of Oklahoma, along with other people, had to fund the defense of the appeal. We lost the appeal. And it was interesting because listening to the logic and how they did it, I didn't think we lost the appeal, but obviously I'm not a judge. And so now, because of our relationship with the Attorney General's office, I'm almost 100% sure that they're going to appeal that all the way to Supreme Court.
Okay.
And so we're going to go back to Supreme. Why is that important? Well, a lot of the things that we gained in Rutledge are at risk if we lose in Mulready. So all the pharmacy associations, the Oklahoma Pharmacy Association, APHA, NACDS, NCPA, anybody that'll American Pharmacies, I think, is in there. They're all helping us raise the money to write what do they call the opinions or whatever, the support.
Yep.
Yeah, and so they're going to do that to help support. But if we didn't have a good relationship with our state leadership, they might not do this. So it's important that we be involved in our state politics.
For sure. That comes through too, like with NCPA as well. I think you've always been involved there. I wanted to kind of like drop down like a level, I guess, from there. You even have a lot of your staff involved with NCPA. I think you guys have students doing like fellowships with them and things like that. Can you, I guess I want to expand a little bit on that as well.
Well, like we just hired a pharmacist, young guy graduated from Southwestern Oklahoma, Weatherford, and he was active for 3 years in NCPA student leadership. So he wants to own his own store. He's got a vision of where he wants to buy a store. He's willing to learn and do extra things. Graduated in December. But one of the things I told him, I said, if you'll come work for me, we basically him, will do the NCPA fellowship. And what I like about that fellowship is it's not just one thing. It's not focused. It's focused on ownership and ways to do it. So whether you're doing a program like Amina does, or whether you're doing a program on medical at home. I have a good friend, Tim Mitchell. Tim is from Missouri, just across the border here.
Rockstar.
He and his staff have done this fellowship, and he told me, he said, Bill, he says, I want every pharmacist I have to do this fellowship because it gives them an understanding of the market and where all the challenges that we're dealing with and trying to be successful. And I think that's something that, I'm excited. I'm blessed because in May, my youngest son is going to graduate from pharmacy school from the University of Oklahoma. Boomer Sooner, by the way.
Hey.
It's okay. He gets to be an SOB now too.
He gets to be an SOB now as well.
Yeah, that's right. Double F to the B. But as we, as he comes in, first thing I want him to do is also be a part of that program. And when you talk to Tim, if you get a chance, it's just amazing because he said they have to pick a project. And so he did medical at home. And so they started looking at how to do medical at home, and they're doing other programs that his son was exposed to when he was doing the fellowship that gave him the confidence to go ahead and try them. And it doesn't mean they're all going to work. Believe me.
That's right.
I had a pharmacist, Sarah Lomax, worked for us for 49 years. And she used to hate it when I'd come home from pharmacy meetings. She said, every time I would come home, we're going to do this now. We're going to do this now. We're going to do this now. And every once in a while, one of them would stick. Right. So, but I think that's exciting, and it's a great program, and it's a value. So
good stuff.
Yeah. Now, I kind of want to stay on the coming home from pharmacy conventions with ideas, and some of them don't work. Right. It's an important part of innovation too, right? You have 10 ideas and 9 of them look promising and fail, but that one is amazing. And you don't find that one if you don't
try 10.
Yeah. Right. And so every time I go to NCPA or, a big conference, there's a bunch of really smart people doing really smart things. Not all of them work in the same locations, and not all of them work in the same niche settings. But if you come back home and you try stuff, that's kind of like a universal. Every pharmacist that I know that's successful in their business tries a lot of stuff, fails at a lot of stuff, and then hits one just glorious home run every now and then that keeps them going.
Yeah, and afraid to fail is keeps people from doing so many things. That's how I learned. Failing at this or that, or I think you have to be willing to try things. It doesn't mean, the thing I also learned from my father is, we do compounding, but we're in a rural location. We don't have to do just compounding. We need to be able to do it. We need to be able to be kind of a general practice, family practice medicine type space where we can do lots of different things. We don't need to put all of our eggs in one basket. And so I think that's given us longevity. We have we're accredited with HQAA. We have all of our stores are accredited. We have 7 BME departments that are in different stores that are really good. And that all started at a pharmacy meeting when my dad bought a wheelchair.
When came home with a wheelchair and a plan.
About that.
Yeah.
And so I'm sure he came back and they said, we're not going to sell that wheelchair.
Like, what are we doing? What are we doing? I'll plug Catalyst Connect then real quick. I don't mean to, we usually have a policy of not plugging ourselves too hard, but you want to talk about a 600-700 pharmacy owners, pharmacists, or super techs in one room sharing ideas with the software of how to try to do it. Catalyst Connect. We also have a separate conference going on in the same building with LTC as well, Amplify LTC. So anyone listening from that perspective, we try to drive that down as cost effective as possible for everyone to get there and do it. So that's another place to think through it. So,
you could talk about, one of the things we talked about concerns going forward for me in the profession, because now my son's coming. I have a long-term view where I want pharmacy to be.
Okay.
But what I'm worried about most is those relationships that I've had the gift of developing over my career. How hard is it going to be with the new technology and everything's digital and you're not actually meeting people face to face. And so I think it's real important going forward for success for you to have that time together where you're meeting at these meetings and understanding how somebody does something. One of the things, and I always quote my father, and I apologize, but he said, everything that I do, I've learned from someone else.
Yeah.
So I might as well share and do my part to help somebody else be successful. And I think that's, but that kind of relationships and those things, that's why you go to meetings. That's why you go to Connect. That's why you go to NCPA. Right. And over time, you can develop relationships that will make a big difference in your practice.
For sure.
Yeah. So I kind of want to hang out there for a minute. If you read, social media, Reddit, Facebook, whatever, you have this whole slew of pharmacists who appear to be wildly unhappy with their job in the profession of pharmacy. You have a much more optimistic view on what that is. Like, what's the difference?
Some of it on social media, which I always laugh, is you're always willing to say things you're not willing to say face to face.
Yeah.
And sometimes people say things they don't understand. I get upset if they say things about organizations that they don't understand the reasoning and why they're doing it. And so I think part of it is I know they're frustrated. And, I used to have people come in and they would transfer in scripts from a local chain. And the pharmacist that worked there is a good guy, but he's under so much stress and they put him in such a
bad spot,
stressful situation. He couldn't practice like he wanted to practice. He couldn't take care of people like he wanted to. So I think trying to, one of the things that I try to create is in our company, I don't want to have our employees work in an environment that I'm not willing to work in myself.
Okay.
And I think, reimbursement's tough. And at this store in Miami, we used to have 4 pharmacists. We now have 1.5.
Okay.
Right. And so that pharmacist that's full time. Now we're going to have 2.5 soon, and we're going to be back to 3.5 in June. But it has created a more stressful situation. People, how they act, patients are more difficult. How do you?
That's real. Yeah. That is real.
How do you explain to people? Especially my staff, and I had a conversation this morning. Customer just, yelled at me all day yesterday. I said, well, do you think they're mad at you? They're not.
Yeah.
Right. They're mad at the world. They're mad at healthcare. They're sick. They're whatever. Understand that they're not there. You're there to help them get through that.
Yeah.
That they're not there because they want to be there. They're not there. Yeah. And so it's hard. And I understand that you're having to work more hours than you used to. I'm going to miss a meeting coming up here soon that I always go to because I have a pharmacist that's having a baby and they're going to be off during their meeting. And so I get to work the counter. So Watch out, world. Bill's back on the counter.
That's when we get ideas from Bill usually.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I always tell people when I started working the counter more the last year or two, and it seemed like the patients really love it, but our employees are scared to death. What's Bill going to do next?
Once we have people, you have to manage Bill without managing Josh, Bill. Right. Yeah.
I do think some of that negative feedback has hurt our profession in a way that, and I'm not saying it's untrue, but some of it is. But think about how few pharmacy applications we have at pharmacy schools today.
Yeah.
And people are not as willing to go into pharmacy school. And I think part of it's the negative feedback, or they get out of pharmacy school and pharmacy's not what they were trained or feel like they were trained to do.
Right.
And so, I hope that we can turn it around. And, I had a medication filled. It was a generic, and for myself, and I got paid 29 cents for my own prescription.
For your own script.
I think 29 cents total reimbursement for a generic cholesterol drug.
How?
And you're thinking,
how do you do this? Yep.
That's why people are upset.
Yeah, that's why people are mad.
And that's what we've got to work to change.
Yeah, I heard another pharmacist tell me this was really cool. I think he was talking about how he talks to his staff, and he goes, if someone's screaming at you as a 10, right, cussing you out, screaming at you as a 10, and the nicest person in the world is a 1, if anything's above a 5, it's not about you.
Right.
I was just so like, oh, that's a great way to look at it. He's like, in your life or at your job, whatever, anything above a 5 is usually not about you. The
other thing I love is the challenge of helping those people, because if you can turn that patient from that negative attitude to a positive attitude, or they feel that you're sincere about helping them, they're your customer forever.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. At least till the PBM takes them away.
Yeah. It's funny. I was telling my pharmacy intern, today's his last day in this rotation, and he's going to go work community retail pharmacy. And I told him, I was like, there's 2 things you have to be able to do right away and be a good pharmacist. One is to be able to explain to patients complicated things that they don't understand at the end of the worst day they've had in a long time, and make them understand it, right? Like, that's the patient part. And then the physician part is being able to explain to a physician what value you can bring, not other than just being like, hey, it's not covered. They've got the same problems you do. If you go to them with a solution and explain to them, hey, this is what's going on, this is how it's going to go, and this is what I can do to fix it, you have a different relationship forever with that provider. Yeah. And now you've solved 2 problems with a provider and a patient, and it's a different world in that place, right? You're not slinging pills, you're being a pharmacist.
Yeah.
Correct. Yep. And I think you've got the right attitude for sure. And I think I laugh about working down on the counter now, and 95% of your scripts are e-scripts, and the patient comes in and the script's not ready. Well, what you have to say is, we don't have your prescription yet. Well, you call the doctor. Now the doctor's upset because he thinks that he's done something wrong, or the nurse has done something wrong, and we sent it, you didn't receive it, something's wrong with your software, something's wrong. And in the old days, I would pick up the phone and just call the nurse and say, hey, Mrs. Jones needs her amoxicillin, and she'd give me the script and it would be handled, and the patient was taken care of. The problem today is a patient comes in and you can't do that as easily as you used to.
That's fair.
It's like, so that's one of I consider the drawbacks of e-prescribing. And that's why I keep pushing to expand the clinical direct messaging part of SureScripts, is because I want us to be able right now to send a note to the doctor to say, hey, Mrs. Jones is here. We haven't received your script yet.
Right.
And then it's part of their normal workflow, and nobody gets upset.
That's fair.
Right.
That's fair. It's created this really efficient, streamlined engine of sending and receiving, or sending prescriptions, but it's not very good at handling a weird exception, right? Like, it's just that's the part that's not smooth and creates a lot of friction, I bet.
Yeah. That's pretty much the explanation of software development in general.
That's fair. Yeah.
Like, we're always good
the
at
happy path, right? You
right.
design the happy path all the time, and then it's when you have to actually do something different.
Yeah. I mean, like, just think about, Bill and his group are testing out our central reporting product that we're supposed to be going out with the cloud-based version very shortly. we designed it. It looked great. It made a ton of sense. And then Don went through and ran some pretty complicated queries, and it didn't work well, right? And it took us another 18 months to figure out how to make it work well. That is a perfect example of it was slower and more expensive than we could have ever thought possible, because you had somebody who was like, hey, here's what I need to do. The system wasn't designed to do that. And that's SureScripts, that's software development, that's pretty much everything. We do a great job at explaining how things should work in the perfect scenario. It's the edge cases that are common, and that's where people get upset, right?
Yeah, and I think, I'll give you an example of something Pioneer did that I thought was great during COVID. Putting in the vaccination screen.
Oh, yeah.
I remember we were having a call with, I think it may have been you and Jeff.
Yeah, it was me and Jeff.
And I said, Jeff, you want to do me a favor? I said, every night I'm going home and I'm inputting all these vaccination records because I can't do it in the normal workflow. And he goes, what do you need? And they talked about this screen and what's on there. Cause clicking here, clicking there, there were questions they were asking that we've never had to answer before.
Right.
For example, I never knew I could ask somebody's race.
That's true, right? It was required field for reporting. Yeah, I mean, I would never probably ever think to ask it. I mean, for the most part.
And so as we went through that process, Pioneer jumped on that and developed it and made it easier. And then I've through some of your automated process, I was downstairs and now they're putting a code in, and all of a sudden the vaccine forms are filled out, and someone comes in our stores today, it is exactly the same as getting your amoxicillin.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
It's part of the workflow. It's efficient, but part of that's because of the development of software. And you have to have a partnership with your software, and you have to have the patience to work with them.
Yeah,
right.
And I think Pioneer being willing to do that is the reason for their success today.
Yeah, and it does require a lot of patience to work with Josh. Let's be real.
No, it doesn't. He does good work. And Don Buckner is one of the benefits that we have as our group is we have an IT director, and he's been able to kind of be a buffer sometimes between Pioneer and our stores and hardware and software. And what's nice is we early on talked about this central reporting server. I think it's going to be critical to Pioneer users as they go forward, because I know how important it is to us as a company to be able to do that. Yeah. And, if someone wants to know how many scripts is all your stores filled, I got to go add it all up. I don't have it all together. And so I'm excited about that. And Josh, I know, I remember every day we're one day closer to the right product. So just remember that.
Well, I mean, to Don's credit, he has literally found every silly thing we did.
Yeah.
He's like, hey, this doesn't work.
He's great at it.
You're right. It doesn't work. Let's go get it fixed.
Don Buckner
he does the same thing to me, buddy.
I'll take it.
Got to. All right. Well, okay. Well, the world wanted to know what Bill Osborn thought. Now they kind of do. From that perspective, let's go on a couple of things that are a little more fun, and we'll wrap up. All right.
Okay.
So before we do prescribables, I need to ask you what a skinny pirate is. what is that?
My God.
What is that? What is that?
So I started going to pharmacy meetings, and I'm a Captain Morgan's fan. I like Captain Morgan's, and I think it's because it's like drinking a vanilla Coke.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Okay.
And so I went to a pharmacy meeting, and I think it was in San Diego, and they had a deal, and I went up and I said, hey, I'd like a Captain Morgan's Diet Coke and Lime. And the guy says, he says, you mean a skinny pirate? I said, oh my gosh, that is great.
That's fantastic.
Can I use that? He goes, absolutely. Well, it turns out nobody else knows what a skinny pirate is. And so we were in Puerto Rico at a pharmacy meeting, and Puerto Rico has all that rum, right? And so I ordered a skinny pirate, and the guy looks at me and he goes, what kind of freaking drink is that? And I said, well, it's Captain Morgan's Diet. And it was like, I was just stunned. There's this guy in this white coat, it's accosted me. So I order skinny pirates all the time now, and then have to explain them. And then Darren, I think, and some of the others have drink Skinny Pirates. But think about it. You can take that and do a redheaded pirate is Captain Morgan's and ginger ale.
Right.
You can have all kinds of fun with that. So it's
I'm
fun.
calling anything with Captain Morgan in it a pirate in some way now.
One of the best parts is like, cocktails have this weird history that's similar, and this is where I get to throw in some random factoids.
Josh loves his cocktails, by the way.
Well, I love cocktails and random facts.
Yeah.
But cocktails over time have kind of gone through these like ages and eras of, all right, well, you have the tiki era, you have the now we're in like the craft cocktail era, but you end up with these books where people write these histories of how this drink got its name, right? Like Jerry Cook and wrecked his boat on the island of Puerto Rico, and this is how you got that. But in 50 years, maybe we have a book that Bill Osborn, through every pharmacy meeting that he's gone to, has popularized the Skinny Pirate.
It's catching on. It's
right.
gonna catch on. It's gonna catch on.
And then we get to try to figure out who has the best Skinny Pirate, which would be hard to do since it's just Diet Coke and Captain Morgan's.
But
I don't know. Fresh lime, it makes a difference.
Ice and fizziness matters, right? All that matters. Let's be real.
And the type of glass. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
All short. What do you got?
I like it.
All right, cool. All right, we got that. Thank you, Darren. All right, Prescribables. This is a section of the podcast I started it. I'm still doing it. It's literally just a part of like, hey, like, what are you watching? What are you reading? What are you listening to that the audience might like? It can be fun. It can be work related. It doesn't matter. I'll make Josh go first, Bill, and then you can go.
Are we watching or reading?
Watching, reading, or listening, no matter. Podcast, fun, like whatever.
So watching, I finally started the last season of True Detective. So far, pretty good. I've got I'm a bit of a Jodie Foster fanboy, so I'll take that. Reading is going to be super nerdy right now.
You don't have to do them all.
Okay.
Just one.
All right. Fair enough. So True Detective then is the game.
All right. What are you reading then? What are you reading?
So I started this new GM role, so I'm reading The Advantage again. So it's like kind of a
good workbook.
Yeah.
Craig
business workbook,
by the way.
And it's nice. We're like, it helps you speak the same language. So all of the executive team has read it, and they kind of use it as like a team building playbook. And so it helps when you're all speaking the same language, moving in the same direction. So
yeah. Employees of RedSail, if you're listening, read it.
It's very practical too. Like nothing in there's like, ooh, didn't think about that.
Right. It's
common sense, but
all right, Bill, your turn.
Oh, have yourself a Skinny Pirate and read that book. Okay, that's good.
I'll do that tonight.
That's good. I like it.
It's funny. I got kind of tired of every day I watch the news every day, and just the news is so dramatic every day, and you watch it, and so I started watching YouTube, and I've started watching podcasts, and as a matter of fact, driving home, I listened to your Scotty Sykes podcast that you did.
Yeah.
What a great resource Scotty is.
That dude is.
And so, I mean, learning those things. So I try to do that business related. And then I did something fun. So I bought an Airstream. And so I've always wanted an Airstream. And so now I just go put up Airstream in YouTube, and it tells me how to fix something in an Airstream, or it tells me how to. And you know what, guys? I've never camped. I've never, it's in a garage right now, but it's just something outside a pharmacy that I can do that gives me a good story. And so I do that. I also like, it's called Masters of the Air. I think it's the new Apple TV series on World War II on the B-17 bomber.
Yep.
Okay.
Oh, I watched it. I watched the fourth show last night. It's
good.
We think about all these kids that were 18 years old and what they did for our country. It's a really good series if you want to watch it.
Yep.
Good.
All right. Those are good. Mine, first of all, Airstream though, real quick, I wanted to get back to that.
Okay.
I can appreciate because I also bought a Tacoma. I know that sounds stupid, everyone, like 2 or 3 years ago. I've had the most fun just like tricking it out a little bit. And I just watch YouTube videos all the time of like, how do you do it? I don't know how to do it. Anyway, that's okay. So I feel you there. So I call it the taco that was bestowed upon me by the dealership. But the one thing I would say is last weekend I watched, I think it was called Mostly Harmless. It is a documentary about a guy who decided to like hike the Appalachian Trail. It's long. If you don't know it, it's really long. He was a software engineer. He scrubbed kind of the entire digital world of his thumbprint, I guess, digital fingerprint of the world. He ends up starving himself. I'm not going to give it the end away, but he ends up starving himself and dying. So, and there's this whole mystery around who he is.
I think you did literally give it away.
That's not. That happens in the first 5 minutes.
Uplifting thing to watch. I mean, what an uplifting thing. I mean,
what a story, right? I know. The whole story is just like these people are like so motivated to find out who he is, and all of this stuff. And they ended up doing it, and it took 10 months. It was that part was a good story. But it's interesting. There's a twist at the end. I'm not going to tell anybody about it, but I don't want to ruin it, but that's the story. If you want to sit in a dark room and put some sad music on, that's a great.
It kind of reminds me a little bit. Like, do you guys remember that movie Grizzly Man from a few years back, where the guy's like, "Yeah, I made friends with the grizzly bears. They loved me. They would never do anything." And then predictably, he gets eaten by a bear, and you're like, didn't see that one coming, right?
Right. A little bit of that. Yeah. No. So good docuseries. It's on HBO, I think, or whatever HBO is now. But
it's Max.
Yeah, Max. Sorry.
So my Airstream obsession was funny. My two boys were out. We were empty nesters, Jane and I, and someday we were having one of those conversations about the next chapter of your life and what do you want to do. And she said, "Well, tell me one thing you've always wanted to buy in your life you've never bought. You never thought you'd ever buy." I said, "Okay." So I said, "An Airstream," and her face just went white. She's like, "You don't camp? Ew. You don't fix cars? You don't do any of that." She says, "Why do you want an Airstream?" And I said, "When I was 11 years old, I was 8 years old. The Apollo 11 astronauts landed on the moon.
All right.
Came back to Earth. They splashed down in the Pacific Ocean, and they were quarantined for 21 days in an Airstream trailer."
I did not.
And so since I've been 8 years old, I've been fascinated with Airstream trailers. Probably because of that silly reason. So
that's actually a pretty good reason to want an Airstream.
Astronauts do it.
Yeah. So now, do you watch YouTube in your Airstream?
Well, I have. Yeah. I got it in October of the big closeouts, and I've done two things with it. I've driven from the dealership to my driveway, and from my driveway to the storage garage. I haven't even had it out. I'm buying the stuff, and I'm following the YouTube channels. There's incredible YouTube channels, so it's been fun. And for me, guys, I think you got to have something outside of pharmacy to do.
Yeah.
Something that's unique to you and your family that you like, and this is something that's given me something outside the profession.
Yeah, so, I hear you. That's good, man.
Awesome.
Also, similar story with me. I've done a lot to my Tacoma, and it has never been off the pavement once. So not even once. It hasn't even seen dirt ever. So
I gotta see this car.
Oh, it's not even that great. It's just I just enjoy it. And then after that, people are like, "Are you gonna take it somewhere?" I'm like, No, I just drive it to work.
Hit or scratch it.
Why would I do that? I don't want to get it dirty. What are you doing? All right. Well, Bill, thank you so much for your time, man. This was a great, epic podcast. Everyone are going to want to hear what you have to say, what your thoughts are. Everybody, including Darren said it for a lot of people, what you do for the profession, I don't think can be stated or thanked well enough. So appreciate your time.
Hey, thank you so much. Appreciate you guys. And Mark and Josh, I look forward to continued working good things together.
We'll do.
Sounds good.
All right, Bill.
Take care, Bill.
Thank you.
All right. See y'all. Bye, everybody.
Thank you for watching the Catalyst Pharmacy Podcast.
If you enjoyed today's episode,
please like, subscribe, and follow us wherever you get your podcast.
Give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts to help us reach more pharmacy professionals like you.